Everybody, it's the regular meeting of the Board of Finance. Today is Thursday, May 16th. Gay, any public comment?
None.
I'm going to ask permission of the board members. Do you mind if we go out of order so we can have our speaker speak first, so he doesn't have to sit here all evening and listen to
Loving
us?
it.
This is item number 7 on our agenda. I'm sorry, item number 8.
So moved.
Second.
I don't know if we need a motion.
We're not in a rush at all.
Steve Lemansky, do you want to take a seat at the table?
Do you have to vote on that to move the
It's
item?
unanimous.
Okay.
It's unanimous.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Aye.
Susan runs a tight ship.
Yeah,
know
just
if
by way
we're
of background, Steve Lemansky works for USI Consulting Group. They're our actuary, and they update our other post-employment benefits report actuarial evaluation every 2 years. So this is evaluation for July 1st, 2023, and the investment committee is responsible for investing the funds in the OPEB account that we have. So Steve will just review the evaluation report for July 1, 2023.
Welcome, Steve.
Thank you. Thank the board for having me here tonight. It's been a while, so I'm glad to be here. So as Tony mentioned, the valuation we're looking at tonight is July 1st, 23. It's biennial valuation. I'm going to start at page 2, just a little background on what the valuation is about and what it's not about before we get into the numbers. So I like to start with the gold box on this page, and what this is true regardless of the valuation. In other words, this is true over the life of the fund. Money into the trust, which when I say money into the trust, cash contributions over its lifetime, must by definition equal benefits paid out to retirees in terms of post-retirement health care, any administrative expenses that are paid from the trust over its life. So those two things have to equal. Of course, a big offset, since you're investing the money does a lot of the heavy lifting over the lifetime of the trust. It's generating an income. The investment return, that's a dollar for dollar offset to the amount of money that the town will otherwise have to put in. And there may be member contributions. Some funds have those. Your plan does not have any employee contributions. It has retiree contributions or cost sharing. So this is true over the life of the fund. Our job as actuaries is to take that lifetime cost and allocate a portion of it to the upcoming budget year. We measure the liabilities as of the valuation date. We develop something called the actuarially determined employer contribution, known as the ADEC, which is basically the town's contribution for the fiscal year. And there's two pieces to that. There's an unfunded liability to the extent that assets don't fully cover liabilities as of the valuation date. There's a payment against that. In the case of your plan, there's 24 years left to go. Think of that as the mortgage of the fund. And then there's an accrual cost for the actives currently working. So they're not getting benefits yet, but they're earning eligibility towards those benefits down the road. So there's a current cost to that called the normal cost. So that's our job. We funded status, we developed the ADEC current budget year contribution. I'm going to flip to page 3, which is an overview of what's the results, what happened since last time around. The funded ratio of the plan, which is simply the assets divided by the liabilities, 100% would mean you're fully covered in terms of the liability. That's at 29% as of the valuation date. That's up about 2 percentage points from last time around. And the reasons for that are, on the asset side, there was unfavorable experience, which kind of worked against you. There were 2 very different years in terms of investment returns since 21, 22, just like every other OPEB plan and pension plan out there in the public sector had a negative return. So that was negative 15.6%. 22, 23 was much better. It was actually above the assumption at 9.4% to the good. But when we go to do our work, as you might recall, we use a smoothing technique because these are long-term liabilities. We smooth out gains and losses relative to the assumption when we determine the asset value. But even on a smooth basis, that return was 4.9% for the first year and 4.4% for the second year. So even though it was positive overall, it was still below the assumption. So that worked against you. To the good was on the liability side. There was favorable experience. The healthcare costs did not go up as rapidly as we assumed, which is favorable. And there were some other favorable changes in terms of participant demographics over the last couple of years. We did make an assumption change prospectively. Even though you had favorable experience, current industry trends are that maybe healthcare costs are expected to increase more rapidly going forward, so we updated that assumption. That roughly offset the liability gain that you experienced over the past couple of years. So once the dust settled, there were some gains, some losses. You are funding some money into the trust, so there was an improvement since last time around. In terms of where you stand relative to other plans in Connecticut, your ratio is just below the median of 33.6%. It's important to note, though, and I have a graph on the next page, slide 4, 53% of plans even today in the state of Connecticut do not even have a trust. They're entirely unfunded. So to start, you're ahead of 53% of those plans, and then the bars on the graph, these are in 20 percentage point increments. So the next bar is if they're between 0 and 19.9% funded and so forth. So you're the third bar in the chart, which puts you ahead of about 74% of plans in the state, when you count the ones that are not funded at all. The 33% was the median for the funded plans. In terms of where the liabilities sit, that's slide 5.
I'm sorry, before you go on, if I could ask just a question.
Sure.
I didn't follow the bar graph that you were saying.
Okay.
You said we're the third one from the left, I take it?
Right. Yeah, so
But in the 20% increments, and it starts with 10%, 20%. The line doesn't go above the 20%, but that's the number. We were at 29 is what I thought. Did I misunderstand?
yeah, I'm sorry. Along the bottom on the y-axis, those are the funded ratios. So
gotcha, there you
the
go.
tall one
Got
is
it.
0%.
That's how many people,
Yeah.
how many fall in those
Right.
ratios?
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, so 7% of the plans are where you are. In terms of the liabilities, that's page 5. So the total actuarial liability of the plan is down in the bottom right-hand corner, roughly $23.3 million as of the valuation date. Against assets, again, on a smooth basis, about $6.75 million. That's how we get the 29%. So for an unfunded liability of approximately $16.6 million. How the $23.3 million breaks down, most of that is for current retirees, and that's in the box, or the kind of block of numbers right above it. Roughly $16.6 million is for current inactive members. And then again, we're accruing a cost for the actives who may have eventually qualified for those benefits down the road. In total, it's about $6.7 million. The columns are how the liabilities break down by group. So for example, the police in total have about $10.2 million out of the $23.3 million in liability. Trends are on the next slide. We have a couple different ways to represent this. The top
Can I ask a
chart.
quick question? You
Yep.
might have said it and I missed
Sure.
it. What is other town? That one, that column.
Other town would
See
be.
Board of Ed and Police. Is that
Right.
just the rest of us?
The rest
of
rest
us,
of the town
correct.
employees?
Yeah.
Correct.
Kind of, just wanted to confirm, but it
Correct.
makes sense.
Correct, right.
It's not another town, it's
Yeah,
this
no,
town.
it's just the rest of us.
Thanks.
In terms of trends, the next slide. So the top chart, the purple bars are the liability of the plan. So you can see that that's been increasing generally. That's a natural progression because interest accrues on liability. Active members are accruing eligibility. So that's a natural growth that's expected to happen over time. But so have the assets. The assets are the orange bar. And when you divide those two, the funded ratio, that's what we're graphing down in the bottom chart. The orange line is how we measure it and what gets disclosed in the valuation. That's on a smooth basis. We changed to a smoothing technique, I believe, for the 2019 valuation. That's why the first couple years are the same. And then the purple line is on a market value basis. So if you had mark to market, there's going to be more fluctuation as the market goes up and down on the asset side. So that's the first part. That's the first key number that we developed is the funded status. The second one that I talked about is the ADEC, or the town's contribution. That's on slide 7. So in total, there are a lot of numbers on this page, but down towards the bottom right-hand corner of this chart, we actually developed 2 years' worth. So the first year is fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025, i.e. the upcoming year. That contribution is roughly 1.59 million. So that would be the full actuarial contribution. That compares against expected retiree payments of about 1.33 million. So the difference is about 265,000. Now, you have not been paying benefits out of the trust, okay? If you were paying benefits out of the trust, then you would have the full contribution going in and all the benefit payments coming out. Since you're still paying things directly, the in and out of the payments kind of washes, so the net number is 265,000. I believe in recent years you've been funding 55,000.
Correct, 55, right.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to do the full actuarial contribution, that 55,000 would need to be increased for the upcoming year to roughly 265. But because of the favorable experience on the premium side, as I mentioned before, you still made some progress since last time around, although not quite as much as you would have had the full contribution been made. In terms of trends in that number, page 8, there has been some increase in the number since 2000, since fiscal 21. The discount rate was part of that. You did drop the discount rate, so that a couple of either the prior valuation, I believe the prior valuation, so that alone is going to increase the present values of the liability. You also updated to a new mortality table based on a public sector study that was done for the first time ever in 2019, and public sector employees were found to live longer than the standard tables that were out there previously.
Good grief.
Right. So it's a good thing, but you know.
I'm happy for them.
Right. Right. Finally, projected benefit payments. So this is just to show projected cash flows in terms of payments over the next 20 years, and that's slide 9. So those current cash flows that I just mentioned of about, call it roughly 1.33 million, are expected to grow over time as medical costs increase, as you get more retirees in payment status. Okay, so this is just informational purpose. This will become more important when you reach a point where you start flowing all the money in and out of the trust, because your investment advisor and the board will need to be aware of that and budget for it appropriately, so you're not selling off equities, for example, to fund benefit payments. So you have to be very conscious of that. Just some summary data on page 10. This is a snapshot, again, as of the valuation date, and it shows just counts and demographics, average ages, and so forth, as far as the number of participants that were in this valuation. So, for example, there were 302 total participants as of July 1st, 2023. 50 of those participants were police officers. 12 of those police officers were active members. The other 38 were retirees and dependents of those retirees. And similar information for the other groups. This is all disclosed in the report. This all gets also disclosed in the annual financial reporting of the town. I have information on slide 11. This is backup, and it's also a required disclosure in the GASB financial reporting. It's basically to show how we support the assumption. It would be rare that this exactly matches the assumption because the model changes every year based on capital market assumptions, but based on the target asset allocation that was in effect for this valuation, we developed expected real rates of return for each asset class. So those are rates of return above inflation. You want to get paid for investing your money, something more than inflation. So those are the amounts in the top of the chart. We are still using a 2.4% long-term inflation, and I know that sounds very low given what's happened in the last 12 to 18 months, but that's based on Social Security's 75-year look. They just published the 2024 study last week, and they maintained it at 2.4 in terms of their best estimate. So the idea is that the Fed is sort of, maintaining a very low target, and you might get some short-term shocks to the system like we've seen the last year or two. But that model, our model generates an expected return of 6.83%. So that supports the assumption. Again, that does fluctuate, but it is more conservative than where you're at right now. In terms of what we're going to look at next time in 2025, the main thing here, because you are up to date in terms of other assumptions, or the key one that we always want to look at is the investment return assumption. So you're at 6.5, which is roughly in line with the median assumption out there in the public sector universe today. So that's my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Anybody on the board have a question, or Mika?
6.5. What do you think annual average?
It's a long-term expected return, right? So where we use that is basically to discount all the liabilities. So we project all those cash flows out into the future, when people are expected to retire, how long they're supposed to live, and then we convert that into today's dollars by discounting it at 6.5.
I don't know if you should answer this or Tony should answer this, but just remind us when we stopped funding retirement healthcare benefits
The town
for employees going forward.
Right, so going forward, the town stopped funding healthcare retirement benefits roughly 2016, 2017.
Okay. So that.
So
okay.
for new hires.
For new hires,
For
right.
new hires,
Right.
right.
These projections factor that in, correct?
Correct, right, because we're not, we're aware of that.
Yeah.
Right.
On the Board of Education side, for certified employees, by statute, you're required to continue to offer it.
Right. So the Board of Education will continue to offer it, but.
In their budget, right. Other questions?
PD, are they different, or are they part of our?
No, they're part of this, and
Okay.
they were in 2017, I think, we
Okay,
no
I was
longer
just
offer it,
curious.
yeah.
Okay.
Is there anything else proactively that can be done besides that to try to narrow the gap, as they say? Are there other strategies or?
In terms of improving the funded ratio?
Yes.
I mean, you could, so there's two things basically: investing the money differently, perhaps trying to generate a higher expected rate of return, asset allocation. I mean, that comes with risks, or cash.
Increase our 50,000.
Those are the two levers. In terms of modeling, I mean, plan design. I mean, you've closed off the plan to groups you can. Cost sharing, I think, on the Board of Ed side is as high as it can be. You can't. I don't think you could. I mean, that would be a negotiation item, but you're kind of capped out there.
And I take it from what you said that statewide, we're not doing too badly,
Correct.
given where these numbers are, so.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I like to remind boards sometimes is these liabilities were not even required to be measured until 2008, 2009. That's not too long ago in the lifespan compared to defined benefit pension plans that have been around for many decades. So the liabilities were not even measured. Most municipalities had, of course, no money set aside for funding because the liabilities weren't measured. So you're starting from zero on long liabilities.
Oh, and just also for clarification, Amity has its own
Correct.
OPEB trust. And I seem to recall from my days there that that's funded
Yeah.
to some
they're pretty well
ratio. I don't know
funded,
what the numbers are.
Yes, yeah, I'm the
Do you do the
actuary
actuary?
for
Yeah.
that plan, yes.
Yeah.
I am, yeah, they have a higher ratio.
Okay. Other questions?
So as a reformed CPA, it's my dream to question an actuary, right? So this is it's a big moment for me.
Control yourself,
Yeah.
control yourself.
No, one question I had, the returns, the market returns that were quoted at the beginning,
Correct.
are those are geometric or relative to the assumption?
You mean the actual returns?
Correct.
Those are just the actual, money weighted rate of return for the
So
year.
not relative, it's just that market
Correct.
return, right?
Yeah.
So given, I saw the allocation in the back of the page.
Mhm.
What types of investment vehicles is the trust invested in? Are these all funds? Like, how is that?
I
How's
believe
that
they're
work?
funds.
Yeah, they're funds, and we have our investment committee that monitors them on a quarterly
And that was my next
basis.
question. So our investment committee determines what
That's correct.
funds? Okay.
Correct. We have an investment advisor, called, their name is Fiducian, and we meet with them on a quarterly basis, and we review the portfolio, and we discuss it and make recommendations.
And there are rules and regulations as to what we can invest in, because it has to be all
And
very,
we have an investment policy that describe, that
It's
sort
all-
of guides that.
as a fiduciary status.
No, I expect it to be, the smoothing takes into effect the collar that's required and all. I get that. And
Yeah.
I expected to see a more conservative return, but like sometimes the returns are not commensurate at all with what general equity and like general fixed income returns are. I get that. We're always going to be slightly behind because of the menu that we've got to pick from. But I would like to question their decisions in terms of like the menu of funds that are available to better keep up with market returns. To your point earlier, like that may be a lever we may be able to pull to make up some of that gap.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, your investment consultant can cover this if they look at some different allocation, but they will show you, yes, there is going to be potentially a higher expected return if you change your allocation or different funds,
Right.
but there may be more what they call standard deviation or risk around that, as long as you're willing to accept potentially higher fluctuation.
It's not that conservative of an allocation. We've got 33% in U.S. equity just alone. Like I expected that number to be lower.
Yeah,
For
I
those
mean,
kind of returns,
it's,
too.
I mean, nothing here jumps out at me relative to other public sector funds that we work with.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anything here is particularly aggressive. And
Oh,
that comes out in your expected return. I mean, your expected return is
Right.
around the median, so.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Do you want Mr. Lewinsky to autograph this for you?
I got a picture with you afterwards.
Any other questions for Steve? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. You sure, Javier? Take mine.
I know where he works.
Do you want to do this presentation too, and then just do our stuff?
Sure, we can do that.
Yeah.
You mean the building?
Yeah. Or do you want to just go through our, no, well, I think we're waiting for some selectmen, so.
Tony is pointing out that.
Do we have some selectmen coming?
Yes,
There
we
was
do.
supposed to be,
Yeah.
There is. They're
Alright, so we're
expected
waiting.
for
Oh,
like
So
6:30-ish.
beginning,
But it's
So we'll
6:30.
do this at the
Yeah,
end?
yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, getting back to our regular agenda. Administrative officers report.
Thank you. I have your report here through April, and some of the year-end surplus is just about $1.2 million. Because we have a fund balance allocation of $800,000, that leaves us about $400,000 added to our fund balance. That leaves us at about 15% of our annual expenditures as of the end of the year for our fund balance. Some of the usual suspects here that we've discussed in the past, our interest income continues to generate and do well, and that's a $390,000 surplus. We have a good portion of that invested in the state treasurer's investment fund, and that continues to do very well. It's one of the leading funds nationwide, actually. The intergovernmental revenues surplus about $230,000. On the expenditure side of the ledger, we have a $30,000 surplus in pool and gym because we've closed the pool at Beecher Road School, and we have about $100,000 surplus in employee benefits. finally, Amity School District returned $463,000 from their 2023 operations.
Anything else? Any questions for
that's
Tony?
it.
Tony, what, the MRSA funds that are not budgeted and not expected, how does that factor, does that hit operating?
Operating,
Okay.
right, so we had, we pay our pension based on a percentage of our payroll. So, we had a percentage that was budgeted by the state administers our pension, so we're part of the state pension system. And so, they restructured the plan after our budget was adopted. So when they restructured it, they lowered the percentage, but it was after we adopted our budget, that's why this is surplus.
You wanna do?
I put the percentage in there, yeah.
Any other questions for Tony?
One more thing, I want to make sure I understand this right. There's almost like a 6.8 million shortfall in real estate tax. And the way I read this, it's personal real estate plus motor vehicles
Right,
plus
that's
motor vehicle
correct.
supplement.
You have to add those all together.
That counters against it, right?
That's
And then
correct.
After you do all that, there's a $644,000 shortfall roughly.
Correct.
That is that's related to motor vehicles decreasing.
Yeah,
in
and,
value,
well,
correct?
there's a 600, yeah, and I anticipate that, we should be collecting some more, revenue, taxes as we go in the next few months, so I'm.
That's just uncollected
Yeah,
revenue.
correct, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
so my sense is that we'll be pretty close on taxes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Anything else? Any other questions for Tony on it? Do you wanna do the, Board of Ed financial report, or are we skipping over that?
Yeah, we can,
It's under you, but we
Yeah.
can move forward.
you move forward, yeah,
Okay.
that's just for an FYI.
Yeah, okay. All right, we're gonna do funding requests. The first one, in the packet is, well, now I know why you're all here. Human Services Department. Tony, you wanna talk about this?
Certainly. Human Services Department is requesting $20,000 to do some renovation and some upgrades to the soon-to-be vacant child care center space. And that was requested in their budget, as you recall, in the budget process.
For this year.
Right. For next year's budget, which was removed from the budget, and so we'd like to fund it through this year's contingency.
Right.
It's possible they move out earlier than we anticipated.
Do you need a motion to begin
Well-
the discussion, Susan?
No, we can talk about it, but let me get to the,
Okay.
hang on, my paperwork's a little screwed up. Okay. You wanna make the motion?
Happy to.
Go ahead, do it.
I'll make a motion to approve funding request number 2324, is that right?
2324-21.
Yeah, 21, an amount of $20,000.
Is there a
Second.
second? Javier's got the second. Okay. Any questions for Tony? Any discussion? You all remember when we did
It's
this?
actually needed, I've been up there too, so as part of our overall center building, we've been through that for space, and it definitely needs
Needs a little
a
attention.
little upgrade.
It's some attention.
It doesn't need a complete, but it's just something that we could move in and
You think 30 years of
Human
toddlers
services.
did their work on it? Is that what you're telling me? I happen to know it's 37 years worth of toddlers, but that's okay.
Tony, on a somewhat related note, how much of a hole is that going to create in the budget when the daycare center moves out and we're not receiving that revenue
It's
anymore?
about 62,000
Annually.
annually that we receive in rental income.
Any other further discussion? Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay. The next one is, we need a motion to, for funding request 2324-22 in the amount of $20,000 to fix the library roof.
So moved.
Second.
This is a request to repair a leak at the library roof that was discussed during the capital budget, if you recall. This was removed from the capital budget for FY '25 with the anticipation of paying it out of contingency in the current year.
We all remember this?
Yep.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? I'll make a motion to approve funding request number 2324-23, which is a security project at the police department. Is there a second? You want to talk about this?
Certainly, this is the last of for this month of projects that were in the FY25 capital budget. This was removed in that budget with the anticipation of paying for it in '24, so the police department can complete their S2 installation, which is their door security. It's electronic door security at the police department. Definitely a necessary item.
And we all remember this from the budget process,
Yeah.
talking about this. So this is coming out of contingency.
Yes.
Any questions, concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'll make a motion to approve funding request 2324-24 in the amount of $6,000 having to do with payment for natural gas. Any second? Any questions, discussion? You want to talk about this?
It's pretty self-explanatory.
It's natural gas and we have to pay for it.
Right.
Okay, that's the, any questions or issues? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Abstentions? I'll make a motion to approve funding request 2324-25 in the amount of $4,200. This is to move stuff around in human services budget. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, this is the meal program.
Right.
There was
Price increase.
price increase.
Right.
Or just really hungry seniors, we're not sure which. Any questions or concerns about this? It's pretty straightforward. All in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay. I think, is that all of
That's
them?
it.
That's it.
Yep.
Can I ask a procedural question? I noticed that on the funding request forms, there's a space for your recommendation to the Board of Finance. Your signature's on there, but you're not making a recommendation. Are you supposed to make a recommendation to us?
Basically, if it comes to you, it means that the Board of Selectmen have approved it.
Okay.
We've taken the vote, we've approved it, and thereby recommend funding.
Okay.
What
So
we're
we-
actually doing is moving the money. from
Right,
one
but
fund to
on
the
the
next.
the actual form, there's no
Right,
granted
you
or
probably should
amended.
check the box.
Yeah, so we should
Yeah.
probably check the box when you sign it.
Yeah.
You got it.
Just to make clear that you're recommending the funding request.
Well, you are a CPA, aren't you? Okay.
Yikes.
Okay. Approval of minutes. Am I doing this in the April 18th? Okay, I will accept a motion to approve the minutes of April 18, 2024. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, and is there a second? Okay. Any discussion, issues, concerns, typos? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? And I will also accept a motion for approval of the minutes dated April 25, 2024. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, issues, typos, concerns? We've all looked at it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't
Were you not there? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So one abstention. First Selectmen's report. You want to give a report?
Thank you. We'll keep it somewhat brief. We have the annual town meeting is this Monday, May 20th. And I also wanted to let you know that the Board of Selectmen have awarded the town planner bid to Goldman & York. This is a firm for a town planning resource. There's some funding that we have available to us, and we've also applied to the state for a grant that'll make up any difference. We've already negotiated with them in terms of how they're going to bill us, and it'll be on a month-to-month basis, so we can use what we have for the time period that we need it. But needless to say, we haven't had the town planner for the better part of 20-some-odd years. It's a resource that, at this point in time, with some of the things we're looking to do from a growth perspective, we feel the expertise that they'll bring is something that'll be of great value to us, working with our EDC, working with our TPZ, and working with some of the other boards and commissions, including the Board of Selectmen. So we'll be meeting with them within the next week or so, and negotiate all the details, sign the necessary contracts, with the hope of getting them started as soon as June.
Oh,
And there is money this year that's already been
That's
allotted for that.
let's
Mika,
take care of
that was the local of the two choices we were looking at, right?
That is correct. Thank you for bringing that up. And yeah, they have extensive experience here in Connecticut
Yeah.
with a number of municipalities we have actually spoken to, so we feel very comfortable with that. Fire storage unit at the fire storage and training facility has, we've agreed upon the different designs as far as the bids were concerned. That'll be probably coming up at our next meeting as far as bid award is concerned. Obviously, what we're looking to do here is to move that project along, because that'll allow us to move the equipment that they store at the old firehouse. We have two in excess. We actually have an over $2 million grant that we are looking to utilize to renovate the old firehouse. That comes with somewhat of a deadline. We have to have that contracted for by the end of the year. So we really need, this is kind of a domino thing. So if this project's move forward, we can move forward with that project to make sure we stay in that time frame. Where the Board of Selectmen Strategic Committee, to the selectmen who are here are part of that. We're actually modifying the strategic plan that the Board of Selectmen before us have put together, and adapting it to some of what we're looking to accomplish over the next 2 years, and beyond. We expect that we'll have something to present to the Board of Selectmen to review and to input on by our next meeting, which is on the 12th of June. That'll be a very important document from our perspective. Our agenda items will be geared toward making sure that they address the items that are on the strategic plan, and it's something that obviously I'll be sending out to the Board of Finance as well for your input as well, that we will be sending out.
I imagine that's a very fluid document, and I wouldn't even recognize it from 2 years ago.
There are a few
Making
changes.
so many changes to it.
But,
so.
format-wise, and a
Which
lot
it
of what
always
was
was
on
gonna
there.
be.
Yeah, a
Good.
lot of what's on there stays on there because
Yeah.
it's just specific to running the,
Right,
what we do.
right.
But you're absolutely right, Beth.
Yeah.
There need to be some changes, and we've
That's
made them.
good.
So, but yeah, that's, pretty excited about that actually, because I think it'll give us some direction, and it'll help us with also the boards and commissions, obviously, to make sure that everyone understands, okay, here's the plan, and here's what we're gonna be working toward. As far as CCW is concerned, we're down to two finalists as far as the consultant for that is concerned. It's a master planning consultant, and we expect that we'll finalize that. We have meetings set up for the last week, or the first week in June is actually when we'll be meeting with them. And we'll narrow that down hopefully at our next meeting to the partner we'd like to work with on this. Again, a big part of funding for that is coming from a grant that we've put in for. We have a good feeling on it. We're confident in terms of what we've submitted, but obviously it is a grant, and we need to wait and see what decision is made on that. And I also did want to mention just that most everyone knows that Amity Meats closed. We did give a citation to Alan Rice and Judy Penagrossi at our last meeting as well. They've been in town for over 45 years, and certainly for as long as I've lived here, people have always mentioned it, and it's always been a place where people meet. So we felt it was appropriate to just recognize them for their contributions. Alan had also served as our treasurer for quite some time as well. So not only did they give in terms of their establishment, in terms of their store, but also in terms of their time. And that's it.
Thank you.
Any questions? Anything you're hearing?
Baker, just one question. You said that for the CCW and that you're hoping to get the grant. Do we have funds of the grant? I won't even say it. But
Don't say it.
I'm not gonna say it.
Okay, then don't say it.
No,
But will you
I'll
go
say it.
forward with it?
I'll say, we have enough to engage and initially start, but we would not be able to do the complete process, if you will, without additional funding, which we would have to go for.
Okay.
And I would obviously make sure that we present what we would need, why we would need to do that, should that situation arise. But good question. We don't have enough
I
in the
thought you were
budget.
gonna ask my question. My question was, what grant did we put in for to help fund the
It's
CC?
actually a brownfield grant, and it's specific to planning and remediation. What needs to be remediation in terms of the property itself. And the intent of the grants are usually granted so that you can plan, so that you can do something productive with that property. And so, I mean, we fit
It's like
very
for
well.
environmental remediation, that kind of thing.
That is included in there, along
Okay.
with a lot of other things that go along with the planning, exactly.
Okay.
And they don't do the remediation at all. They do some assessment, and that's only a part of the overall, what they do.
Other questions for Mika? Thank you, Mika.
You're welcome.
Any other liaison reports from the board? No? Okay, then we are on item number 7, appointment of the auditor. Tony, you wanna talk about this?
So every year, we, the Board of Finance, which acts as our audit committee, the state requires you to appoint an auditor for our upcoming financial audit for the year ending June 30th, 2024. And this is the 4th year of a bid for RSM, which is the auditor we like to recommend for the FY24 audit. Next year, we'll go out to bid for auditing. And, usually do it in like multi-year bids because it takes a few years for a firm to learn. And usually the first year will cost more than like the 4th year.
And I seem to recall you saying there's sort of a crisis, there's
There
a dearth of auditors.
There's not very many.
There's not very many
Yeah.
anymore. Huh,
For a municipal audit,
aha.
there's
Okay.
probably over 50, 60 maybe, municipalities that are late with their audit this year.
Because there's not enough auditors.
We're not one of them.
But we
but
got one.
We got ours in on time.
Who would have thought? Okay, all right, so go ahead. Did you have a question?
Well, I wanted to go back to my item, if you had if the board would indulge me to do so when Tony's done.
Okay, well, let's make our motion first to
Please.
appoint the auditor before we forget. We need a motion to appoint RSM LLP as the auditor for this upcoming season.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Aren't they already we already have them under contract, correct?
Pretty
It's
much,
just a
yeah,
formality.
it's a formality that
It's next year
OPM,
we go out to bid.
correct, yeah, OPM requires
But
it.
we still have to appoint them every
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
So, all in favor? Any opposed, any abstention? No, we're good, okay. Sir?
Just a reminder, as a result of some of the folks who are sitting in the audience, yesterday I did attend the volunteer recognition event that's put on by our Human Services, and there were over 175 volunteers who are recognized in terms of what they do. And as I think about it, and as I was thinking about it here, it certainly does impact us from a financial standpoint, because what those folks do obviously is help our town in so many different ways with so many different things. But it's a very impactful type of an event. We also recognize the Youth of the Year, who was Sophie Nugent, and it just was one of, if you have an opportunity next year, if you take part in it, you'll see that there are so many folks who do so much for our town that go beyond what you would
Is that
expect.
Nicole's daughter?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Ah,
Yes, it is.
okay.
Mhm. So it's
Great,
a
good.
very nice event, very well
Wonderful.
done.
Sorry I
It's
missed
Johnny's
it.
daughter too, right?
So
I wasn't
wanted
gonna say
to point it out and thank
I was
Human
gonna
Services.
stay out of
for
I
that.
didn't
what they-
expect that
We
line
gotta
to
stick up for the
come.
dads here, come on.
Okay.
Thank you, Mika.
Thank you.
Okay. We have been asked, item number 9, we've been asked to host, if you will, a presentation from the building committee for the center building project. I just want to emphasize that we're not voting on anything tonight with respect to the center building. There's been no recommendation, there's no funding request. We're just all here to listen and learn.
Correct.
I'm glad you think so. Yeah,
And to that
completely
end,
correct.
To that,
And-
All we just,
when you're done.
all we'd just like to thank everybody for giving us the opportunity to be here tonight so we can present an update on the progress we've made.
Give me a second.
Fair enough, and Mika wanted to say something.
I do. There are 4 members of our Board of Selectmen here who are also here to listen to the presentation, Dwight, and as such, and because of that, we did notice this meeting as a special meeting for the Board of Selectmen, so I'd like to call to order the Board of Selectmen special meeting for Thursday, May 16th, 2024, with the specific intent of listening to the Building Committee presentation to the Board of Finance. So we are called to order from a Board of Selectmen standpoint as well.
And later
Okay.
on, Mika and I will be singing a duet. Okay.
That's worth the price of admission, right
I mean,
there.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Joining us tonight is
Susan
Michelle
can
Miller
sing.
from SP Plus A, our architect. She's actually gonna walk everybody through what we've done to date. We've been working on this project for over 2 years, since the building committee was formed,
do
so
you see or do you want?
if you can, if you have any questions, hold them until the end. Let us go through it. We're gonna try to go through it fairly quickly. It is a lot of slides, but we're not gonna spend a lot of time on slides. What we plan to do is send out a link tomorrow so that everybody on the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance can actually see the actual copy. And then we can meet again to discuss any issues or questions anybody may have on it. Plus, I have members of our building committee, Jeanette, Susan, and Frank, PD chief. So, I just want to give you, everybody, a little history where we started and where we are today. On May 11th, 2022, the Board of Selectmen established our committee, Center Building Renovation Committee. We've been meeting on a monthly basis and at times a lot more as needed for the project. Our charge was essentially to study and make recommendations to convert the existing center building into a modern space for PD, human services, as well as other programs. This included a thorough analysis of the building aging MEP systems, infrastructure, and the envelope, and the entire building envelope, and then make recommendations to bring them up to date. Note that the center building is roughly 100 years old. It is in dire need to be revitalized and updated. We can't allow it. It's a wonderful building, and it's an extremely important asset to our town. As part of the charge was a selection of a qualified architectural engineering firm to help us guide us through this project. We assembled an RFQ, went out to bid. We got 5 responses, interviewed 4 of them in detail, and we selected SP Plus A not only based on their proven track record with Woodbridge, because they've done a lot of past projects with us along current projects, but they showed us that they clearly understood the parameters and requirements of what we were looking for. So in a memo to the Board of Selectmen back in January of '23, we requested the Board of Selectmen authorization for us to enter into a contract with them for the entire project, and then as well as to enter into a separate contract for the renovation of the center gym, which we have a steep grant for. Board of Selectmen authorized both, but didn't authorize any expenditures of the funds at that time, just to go to contract. Then the funds were subsequently given approved by the Board of Selectmen at their February 23rd meeting for the services of the architect for the entire gym steep project, and then for the services for the architect to proceed only with the performance of phase 1 of the center building project in the amount of $55,000, which is what we've just completed and what we'll go through today. Just for your information, work on the gym project has begun. It began on May 8th. It's, following the Amity High School referendum, and is targeted to be complete by October 1st of this year, in time for the national election, which is November 5th. So we're essentially complete with our work associated with phase 1. And then I'm gonna have Michelle get up and just walk us through what we found, existing conditions, what some of the remedies are, and some cost options too we can walk through, so. Michelle? Yep, you can get her right,
Come up here?
yeah, go, and you can use that as, and
Sure, I just don't want to block anybody. My name is Michelle Miller. I'm an architect with Southern Petrocelli. I've been with them for 10 years, and it's been a pleasure working with this committee on this project. Everyone's very involved and cares deeply about this building. There's quite a history here. The original building was built in 1928. It has masonry construction with a plaster interior. Renovations, in 1949, the gym and classroom addition where the daycare and senior center are, that portion was built. Masonry construction. At this time, Insulation and cavity walls were not included, which definitely limits the building's energy efficiency. In 1956, the police wing, which was a school at the time, was built. Again, no cavity walls here, low energy efficiency construction. In 1980, that was the last major renovation that occurred. Most of it focused on the police station. Some of it was new windows throughout the building. And then you know the senior center was just done in 1923, and the gym is current.
Do you mean 2023?
Did I say that? 19, yeah, I did, didn't I? 2023, sorry about that. All right, so the purpose of this project was for us to start our design services here. We needed to get to know your building, understand the needs of your building users, and then come up with a design solution. So first, we did an assessment of the building. This is where we walk through the building to do a visual survey. I myself covered the architectural side of things. We had a plumbing, fire protection engineer, a mechanical engineer, and an electrical engineer. We were guided through both the police station and the human services side of the building. The only area we did not focus on was the senior center, since that was just done. And what we were looking for was code compliance was a big one, ADA accessibility, and then just the general condition of the buildings. And we put a spreadsheet together. Below here you can see I have a legend there just to explain what we did on these spreadsheets that you're going to see. One is an urgent priority. We see that as a code issue or a health, life, and safety issue. 2 is this should be addressed within 1 to 3 years. It's kind of a high priority. 3, it's a moderate priority. This should be done in 3 to 5 years. And 4, it's a lower priority, maybe 5 to 10 years. Maybe it's just a recommendation type of thing. So once we went through the building and understood that, we then met with both Chief Capiello and Director Jeanette Glicksman, went over the programming. From that, we did stem off of the original police station study that was done in 2009 and kind of built off of that. And we ended up creating a spreadsheet that depicts all the spaces we need, the adjacencies they need, so that we know what the kind of design problem is, and we can move forward into floor plans where we start to figure out where things can go. We began phasing it. Since this building's occupied, we're going to need to work on pieces at a time and move people around, and then ultimately estimating. So I'm going to walk you through first the assessment of the building. And I'll try to be brief. There is a report that we put together in September that you can all review, narratives, more cost information in there. But to focus on the exterior, we have, like I said, a lot of masonry that really does need some work, some repointing. You can see the basement foundation there is stone. There are some issues with that. There's a lot of leaking going on in this building, and I'll show you some images as we move inside. You have the windows here. They are aluminum, double paned, which is nice, but they are from 1980. They're past their lifespan. Then there are other windows. You can see in the foundation there, above some of the doors. They're either wood or steel with a single pane of glass and extremely dated. You see the front entry there. There's some woodwork that needs repair. Doors should be replaced. The roofs are another issue. You have an EPDM roof on the flat portions. That is just about at its 20-year mark, so it's starting to show signs of wear and needs some work. The most concerning is the asphalt shingle roof on your main portion of the building. If you can see, they skipped some layers there at the bottom. On the inside, there's a lot of rot in the wood. The cupola needs to be rebuilt. So we have some concerns with the deck and everything there. So this is a sample of the spreadsheets that we put together. This is just for the exterior of the building. And just to hit home, these are just to replace things in kind. All of these are not improvements of the building yet. This is just this assessment and us highlighting those items. As you can see, we have a few number ones, and that's like a stair rail that's not compliant. It's a code issue. Moving on the inside, just starting with flooring. Some of those square tiles there you can see, that's asbestos flooring. So that really should be abated. The carpet there, that's the gym. It's bubbling up. It's pretty much unsafe in the gym. And then some older flooring throughout. The walls, there's areas where they're starting to break apart. This plaster is known to have asbestos in it. So that's a concern also. I can start to see wallpaper kind of falling apart. Here, on the image here, you can see glue daubs at the ceiling. Some of those are gonna probably have asbestos. Luckily, on our gym project, the ones that were tested were clean. You don't know what you're gonna get in the different vintages in this building, really. Some more interior conditions. We have a lot of ADA accessibility issues in this building. Doors don't have the correct hardware or are the wrong size. Signage isn't compliant. Sinks aren't compliant. The upper one is from the police station. You're supposed to kind of have a knee space there. The lower one is from the childcare room. They're short and tiny and aren't going to work as they move out of the building. The elevator was done in 1980. It is in need of modernization, not just finishes modernization, but more of the mechanical mechanisms for the elevator itself. Bathrooms throughout the facility. There was not one single ADA compliant bathroom. I assume there is in the senior center, but again, in the areas we looked at, they all date back to the 50s and are lacking ADA compliance. So on the interior, we have about 2.6 million. Fire protection. This might be where I need to look at my notes. I'm not an engineer and I try to follow along with everything, but what I do know is most of the building is protected, but the police side is not. As a high-risk, police stations are supposed to be sprinkler. They should be. One area has a Hallen system, which is in their IT room. Those are no longer allowed. We've seen other areas where there's wood framing, where sprinklers should be actually above the ceiling because of that wood framing, and they are not. So we do recommend pretty much a full replacement of the system. We are replacing it in the gym currently, so the whole system really should be replaced. Plumbing. Some concerns are that there's a septic system through the whole facility here, this whole complex, and during big storms, there is some intermingling of the storm and septic system. We've heard that, so that's a concern, and we feel that you guys should probably get your septic system evaluated. Again, we're doing a visual surveillance, so we don't know what's happening underground. But that was a concern. Some of the equipment is old. You can see a water heater there. It's past its lifespan. It's not even on a concrete, it's kind of sitting there on a piece of wood. Piping typically is past its lifespan. We know there's some big drainage issues that are going to be rectified on the outside at the senior center. There's a picture there with the bags kind of trying to block rainwater from going in down that ramp. There's an old sump pump, which is residential style, doesn't have controls, and it is definitely not addressing the water issue in the basement. So some of the plumbing we have totaling at 1.23 million. The mechanical systems are pretty dated. The police station is served by a hot water boiler, which is past its lifespan. Additionally, they have RTUs for cooling on the roof span, again, past their lifespan, and also not supplying cooling throughout the whole space. They have some window air conditioning units. And the same issue occurs on the human services side. There's window air conditioning units, all perimeter steam heating. All of that equipment is past its lifespan too. We do know a boiler just recently went and they had to replace that there. A lot of this isn't to code anymore. Ventilation's done through windows. Now we don't do that, especially since COVID. Air quality's become a big, big topic, and it's really not addressed within this building right now. So the mechanical assessment, you can see some reds there that she's calling out that are code issues, but it's totaling at almost $3 million in mechanical. Electrical, doesn't get any better here. The electrical service to this building is a 600 amp service, and really they cannot add any new equipment onto this building at all. The service needs to be upgraded to about a 1200 amp system. A lot of the equipment is dated. There's issues with some code issues with some fire alarms, emergency lighting. A lot of the lighting is just dated. There's some issues with telecommunications not working because of, this is where I struggle with the words, with the technical part. There's a UPS that's probably triggering things to fail, is what I was told. And the generator needs an upgrade to the transfer switch and will need to be new once the system's upgraded additionally. So with that, we have the electrical at 1.35. So this is our total assessment. Again, this doesn't take into account the renovations we're about to look at. Renovations, we're moving walls. Also, since we did this in September, we learned more about the issues in the basement. So we come up with some more solutions as we get into the renovations. But we're totaling at almost $19 million here in just addressing these issues.
Michelle, I must have missed some numbers, because I had 2.6, 1.2, 3.0, 1.4.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said I'm missing some numbers.
Okay, so that's because, let me see if I can get this to work. So that total is probably right up here. Then we start to add on general conditions, contingencies, and we get to a construction total. And then we add on a soft cost total for design fees, permitting, testing.
So is the construction is,
The construction is really the 15 million.
right, and explain to me again what that entails, what that's for, what that encompasses?
So that's for all the, so here you can see the chart below. It's for the site number, the exterior number, the interior number, plumbing, mechanical, electrical.
That's basically, Mika, that's basically, if we didn't do anything with the building other than just fix the
stuff that they
issues
pointed
that
out,
were
right.
identified, that's what approximately it would cost. It's not to upgrade, it's not really doing any upgrades.
And we don't,
I understand, I'm sorry if I'm just being a little dense on this one. You just gave us numbers for fixing the interior, or you're not even fixing, just fixing, literally just fixing the interior, the plumbing, the mechanical, and electrical. And the numbers you gave me, I come out with about 8 million, and that's what I'm not seeing, and then there's a construction cost. Is that related to what you just gave us, or is that something?
it is related to what
So-
I just gave you.
So, okay, so those numbers that you gave us were just for like materials, or,
That was just for, yes, the raw construction costs where we start to add up and come up with a number. These are also, in these types of,
I can't really see
You
it, so
can't
no,
see it,
yeah.
so the numbers are on this bottom left.
Okay.
yeah. So I know I told you a different number on the oh, you know what? I have site broken up, exterior. I told you a different number because it didn't have all of this added in.
Got it, okay,
That's, yeah.
fair enough, I get your point,
And when you get, if you look through this, you'll understand it even more.
thank you.
No problem. Escalation's not included, hazardous materials weren't included. We didn't know the extent of the plaster at the time, and we couldn't really quantify that, so we're kind of highlighting that those aren't even included in these numbers. All right, so our assessment really, the main concerns we had for this building are the building envelope needs help. The basement water infiltration problem. So this is the image I wanted to show you. This was the most recent large storm we had. Your team of maintenance guys were in there for 2 days pumping water out of this basement. You can see the back foundation wall here. This is where grade is. All of that is underground and water is seeping in through all of those joints because this is a stone foundation. So we do come up with I'll show you soon what we plan to do. But I also want to point out there's some structural issues here. This is under the gymnasium and there's temporary jacks kind of holding that up. That's kind of concerning, especially seeing it sitting in water now.
One good basketball game and the whole thing just falls apart, okay.
Or a presidential election.
This is under the fitness room, not the gym, just so you know,
Oh,
fitness
God.
room.
Okay.
Okay, so we have the poor electrical, poor mechanical, the asbestos, and the ADA accessibility. Those are our big items here. Now we're gonna get into programming. We kind of put this little diagram up that kind of shows you how the building's used. The police station here, they have a long growing need. They have had a study in 2009 and have wanted to modernize their facility for quite some time. Human Services has a growing need for supporting the community through the countless programs that they offer through their building. And the daycare and the fitness rooms are going to be leaving soon. It frees up space for the both of them to kind of rearrange and come up with a better plan, and that's what we're going to get into now. I didn't want to bore you with the, this is our spreadsheet that breaks out all the components of the police station, human services, the EMS that's in the basement, all the pieces and how we can fit them into this 53,000 square foot building. Okay? So this is what is good on here, but that's our floor plan. It looks a lot better when it's printed, so I apologize, and I'm going to walk you through it. What we plan to do is to revamp the main entrance. We need to get an ADA ramp on, rebuild the stairs so we can get people in. Then we have a vestibule that then allows for people to go into the police station. They would be buzzed in, and this is their lobby here. This is dispatch, this is the records room, an interview room, and a toilet room, all the requirements that need to be off of the lobby. Then moving through their plan, we have the administration wing here with the offices, and now we're gonna add a lift in, because we need to have a lift next to the stairs, which are there, it just doesn't show up very well, to get down to where the main entrance to the police station currently is. We're gonna include an EOC space right there at that entry. We have a break room.
What's ERC?
EOC is the Emergency Operations Center. Yep. It'll be used as also police training, but that location near the door we felt was pretty valuable. We have an evidence area, their fitness area, and then this is the prisoner area, kind of revamped. There's a lot of code violations just within that area that we had to fix. We expanded the locker rooms. They're quite small, especially the women's and the men's here. You know, we were very confined. The police had a larger list than the space we had available, so we really had to get creative and come up with some good solutions. And this is the patrol area, which is nice because they have the door right here to their parking lot. And here, this is where the gym is now. We kind of blocked it off there. They don't need to be connected, so they really are secure. Another thing is this concrete area that's back here, we're gonna get rid of it. It is causing ADA problems. It's falling apart. It's a huge concrete kind of plaza built up. If we get rid of it, we can start to get some ADA compliance and code compliance. We need to get 2 egresses out of this courtyard to make it habitable. And we also can get another one to the lower level of the room here. So next I'll take you through, you come through the doors to go to Human Services. Their main office is here. Then they have an office suite here with their conference room, revamping the toilet rooms. This is a Youth Services multi-purpose room. The Youth Services Department is still located here. We didn't really move them around. We have 2 offices here, the Director and Social Services, which has a sound problem, so we really want to get that addressed. A computer area. New bathrooms and service kind of through here, ADA compliance, and then we have our other program rooms here. We have the multi-purpose room, a fitness type room, and then a youth kind of game room. It doesn't have to be youth, anybody can use it. And then we have improved the food bank, storage there. And I'm going to take you now to the next lower level. So this is the basement area. EMS is located right now in this whole volume. We kind of condensed them in. It's still comfortable, gives them everything they would need down there. It also gives us some space to give the facility area kind of a break room and a break room. Here we have police storage. There was a lot of storage we couldn't fit upstairs, so our plan down here is to fur out the walls. We would waterproof the foundation walls and then fur them out with insulation. What I didn't tell you is on the last one here, when we start to rip this up to do the ramp, we're gonna rip this whole piece up. And we wanna put a drainage mat along the foundation and a pipe down there so that we can get that water away from the foundation. And this would be the time to do it. We're ripping half of that up. Also the electrical room. We'd like to expand the generator room since the generator needs to get larger. They'll need an areaway, which is just more ventilation to that. So we're ripping all that up there and might as well get that drainage taken care of there. Here, moving down the plan, again, these are some police storage areas, and then we are into these bathrooms. We're renovating the old bathrooms down there. These can then serve the emergency side of things also if the gym's used, since this is your emergency shelter. These showers become really useful at that point. So this is the electrical area. This is going to get revamped with a new electrical system coming in. And like I said, the generator there. The green spaces are for the kitchens that serve the senior center and human services. There's some improvements we need to do in those rooms and improving some storage there. This is the boiler room, whole new system. We want to get away from steam. It is not efficient. If you're going to do something new, it's going to get rid of the steam. Here's your existing senior center. And now, moving over here, this is the lobby to the gym. We're working on the gym, but we were not able to get the bathrooms and lobby renovated. So we have that included. We also weren't able to get a lift up to the gym, so we're squeezing a lift in there, the stage of the gym. So we're squeezing a lift in there, and we also proposed a vestibule there for energy efficiency and all that. So that kind of takes you through the main plan. Next, we think about how this is going to be phased. How can we do this? First and foremost, before we do anything, we have to get the electrical upgrades, because it won't accept a new mechanical system or any equipment. We need to do that. We also need to do the ramp. So that's when phase one, we would do the ramp, electrical, the foundation repair here. Once we get that in, we can take the elevator offline, because we have now a way in to the main level. So we can take the elevator, the 4 classrooms, and the lobby and renovate that in phase 2. Phase 3, we tackle the main building. So this is a larger space. Human Services is going to have to move over into here when they're renovated, so it's kind of a moving game. At that point, when this is renovated, a lot of the police can move into here, and then we tackle this portion of the police station. And then the final phase was the rest of the police.
Essentially, when you do phasing, you're gonna have to move and relocate. Not only do you have to relocate, but you have to bring their services with them. So you have to bring, IT, electrical, whatever they need to continue to operate. You have to temporarily relocate them, and then, so that you can renovate the space, and then when it's done, then they can move back in.
Just a quick question.
But it's like a chess game. It's a little chess game. How you gonna work it?
It's not a little check.
No, this is, as I said, this is an extremely old building, and it's very difficult to try to move things around and try to get them to fit.
Is phase one assuming that the envelope and the flooding and all that have been fixed?
We're gonna talk about that.
Okay.
That's coming up.
I'm just looking at this because it seems.
No, it's
to me-
coming up. It'll be, as an option, it's coming up.
So we did some detailed estimates. At this point, we have some drawings. There is some guessing still going on at this early phase. Our engineers typically will use lump sums and come up with their costs. On the architecture side, I have walls drawn. I try to do as much takeoffs as we can to come up with viable numbers. So we have sheets just like this for every phase, and again, we can give those to you separately. I didn't want to include them here, so I'm just going to get to the breakdown of it all. So we have our phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5, and then it totals up. So our hard construction number is this $32 million right here. I'm going to go right to the next slide. It shows you the project costs. So once we start to add on we assume you'll have a CM with this project. It's a big enough, complicated enough project. You will want a CM. They will revamp these phasing plans that we came up with, I'm sure. So we have costs for them associated with it, the design services, all the testing and insurance components that go into it, and it brings it up to a $40 million project.
What's the timeline in terms of what we anticipate the overall timeline to be?
So the timeline, we kind of broke it out by phases here. It's a total of 31 months.
But it's roughly 3 years, roughly period. If we started, and if we didn't stop, if we started and we did it, it's roughly like a 3-year project overall.
The estimated improvements in energy efficiency and associated cost, I don't know if you have that.
We do not have that.
We haven't done that yet. And we're just,
Will
this is
that-
just, yes, we will.
Because you
Once-
were mentioning lack of insulation and
And
windows.
I probably skipped over that a little bit, but all new windows everywhere, and then especially in the older part of the building, we are furring the walls out with insulation, so it will be a drastic improvement. Roofing alone, we have to have a lot more insulation on the roof, so there's a lot of improvements with that.
Have you guys also looked at putting solar on the roof?
Right.
We didn't really get into that in detail, but it's definitely possible here.
We haven't gotten that far yet. This is just conceptual. We just went we just wanted to take a look at everything that was done, everything that was there. Look at all the needs for all the departments, and then try to say, okay, this is basically what they're asking for and what their needs are. This is basically, it's an estimated cost. It's gonna vary, but this will give you a good sense for.
Sheila, as I said to Dwight earlier, this is just a first date.
This is it.
No one's kissing, no one's making out, no one's getting married, it's just a first date.
But it is important to consider that, and the numbers should include that,
Oh, it
period.
is,
You know,
yes,
so,
yes.
and as well as everything else that goes along with
Yes.
clean renovation, or green renovation,
Right,
so.
that's correct.
So, we wanted to prioritize some other options for you, because we understand $40 million is not a small amount here. So, we really recommend addressing that building envelope. So this cost, just at $5 million, is to address the roofs, the windows, the foundation wall, get that ramp in also, since we're ripping that up, and, you know, protect the building from, and it also improves some of the energy efficiency with that.
Essentially, if you're gonna do anything, if you're not gonna do them, this is the most important thing, is to protect the building envelope. This is gonna keep the building dry, this is gonna keep it, you know, so that, you know, it'll be ADA compliant and all that, so when you do anything, when you do the interior work, it'll be ready to go. You don't have to, it'll include new windows and everything else.
And to take that a step further, we do recommend including the electrical in with that, which brings it up to 6.2 million. That way, when you are ready, you're, you know, when we're ripping up that area, you're ready to go. You can't really do much without it.
And again, it is a very old electrical system, which has been patched, repatched, patched again, and everything, you know, so it's just, you know, so we're just, and we need to bring it up to code so that it'll handle the load, all the expected load, along with the generator.
So Dwight, I'm gonna ask this question, and don't yell at me.
No,
Right.
it's the same question I'm gonna ask, go ahead.
Okay. How, and Michelle, you may be able to contribute here too. How much is it costing us to renovate this building versus demolish and construct new?
Don't hit him. because
Please,
I was
please
gonna
don't yell.
ask the same question.
I ask that question with all respect to the historical significance of the building, right, and all the memories that are entailed wherein, but that's a lot, it's a big number.
Did anybody look at that?
I know we ran the numbers, I just don't have them fresh on my head. This is less than building new, but not by a ton.
If you're looking to do a 55,000 square foot building,
Yeah.
it's probably.
We're around $900 a square foot.
Yeah,
Like
so
900
I
to
use
$1,000.
800.
It's like over 50, 60, 70 million dollars.
Well, it's important to know that.
If you're
Yeah.
if you're gonna do brand new, first of all, you have to take it down, which means you're still gonna have a lot of cost just to remove the building with the abatement and everything else to demolish it. Then the cost is, like you said, $800 to $1,000.
Where does everybody go?
Well,
Where do all these
well,
departments,
that's-
you know?
And
It's
that's
gotta
the
be
other
thought
Well, you
of.
have to phase it just
It's
like
an
you're
additional
phasing this,
cost,
yeah.
yeah.
Right.
So when this came up at Beecher, their number was like 826 for new construction, if they had to build a new school. So using those numbers, generally, it's like between 42 and 45 million for brand new construction. And I just wonder, if we're gonna spend that kind of money, why are we putting new wheels on the Honda versus, you know, buying a new car? But that's a whole conversation for a different
Right.
story.
But again, we're not here really to talk about that,
Yeah.
right? You know, we're just here to bring everybody an update of where we are, what we found, and
Okay, so why don't we, do you have more? Or,
Just one last slide.
yeah, why don't we let you finish?
Just in conclusion, we do recommend a third-party structural evaluation just for some of those issues that we saw. One thing I forgot to mention when I was talking about mechanical, especially since police is an essential facility, there's seismic constraints that are supposed to be on equipment that aren't there, things like that. So with this being an emergency shelter, police station, we just recommend that. We recommend you preserve the building envelope, of course, improve the electrical, improve the mechanical. We want to make these buildings healthier,
Right.
eliminate the asbestos, improve the ADA accessibility, and then just in general, improve and expand your police department and your human resources, human services. They are serving your community.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So that's-
Javier's point, the way I look at it is that's, as a committee, you should be looking at that as an option. It's something that we should be considering just for no other reasons, just to have that comparison prepared.
we can do that. We can look at taking this building down and building a new one. I don't know how you can take it down piece by piece. You'd have to really demolish the building. And then,
Some of it was built piece by piece, so I
Right.
expect that there should be some means, but, and I'm not gonna, I don't know if it can be done.
I don't
just
know
think we
either.
should be looking
We'd
at it.
have to look at that. We'd have to visit that option.
Well, if you look into grant opportunities for ADA, I imagine there's multiple opportunities to consider, but are there ADA upgrading compliant grants out there?
We can look.
I mean, I think you'd have to. right?
We,
So,
and indeed we would. That would have to play a big
Definitely.
part in this, particularly if we're talking about a 3-year timeline for $40 million.
So I just have a question, if we are going to explore that, the option of potentially knocking it down and starting with a new building, can we also get a sense of, if we were to go through with the entire project, what's the lifespan after that? How many years are we actually purchasing on that? Because I guess, my concern would be, we've got, the original building materials is a pretty substantial building. It's, but the materials that have been used, seems like we should be able to get more years out of that.
You should be able to get, if you modernize it, you redo the mechanical, the electrical, you bring it up to ADA. I would say another 30, 40, 50 years,
Right,
easy.
right.
You'll have to do modifications as you go along, but
Yeah.
once those systems are in, I don't think
So it may
you're really
be
gonna have to do, it's gonna be
an appropriate investment.
Will we
It
be
is an
done
investment.
paying it off?
well,
I mean, but that's something to really
Very
think
good
about.
We did go through the whole question of this with nature, when we chose to do the renovation. We're not done paying for that until
no,
2035.
I remember.
But we estimated the lifespan that we would get from it, and it
Right.
was much, much cheaper to do it that way than to knock it down. So,
I don't know.
be interested in the numbers.
If you are considering a new building, do you have to demolish the building first? Why don't you stay in the building as the other one gets constructed? And by constructing a new building, you will have a better distribution of the services. You're not gonna have to fiddle with the space if it's viable.
The problem is, we'd have to find a site to do that.
financially.
And in Woodbridge, there is like all the NIMBYs, not in my backyard.
Yeah, we would
Anywhere
build
you
up,
try to
sure.
build, they won't let you build.
You know, especially for it to be centrally located.
They won't let you
in
build.
our town, if that's still a goal.
We
I
said
went through that with the firehouse,
Far enough.
Yeah.
and that was a nightmare. That took 2.5 years to get.
Can I just point out that the senior center should not be torn down, since we just put almost $1
I
million into
understand.
it?
I understand.
We're doing the gym.
No
In the
one's
gym,
asking-
yeah.
No one's advocating that anything's gonna be
Right.
torn down.
Right.
But when the Board of Selectmen considers this, because it's gonna be them before it's gonna be us, obviously. When you guys consider this, you're gonna wanna be able to
Look at every
have
option.
that comparison. This is why you're doing it the way you're doing it as opposed to doing it the other way. You have to have that information. That's,
So towards that end, in terms of consideration, Dwight, I wondered if you could tell us, if we wanted to greenlight this, let's say the town comes to the conclusion, we're gonna greenlight, we're gonna step on the gas, what is necessary to move this project into the next phases? Do you have a sense of the dollar amount in the next fiscal year that you would wanna spend?
Yeah, we
if
did.
you
We had it was like a 200 to 300,000, whatever it is. But right
That
now
was
is
the travel
phase one.
request.
We're done at phase one.
Right.
Phase two is then to authorize the architect to go into detail, start developing a spec, start developing the drawings, all the detailed drawings. For us to bring a CM on board, a construction manager, because this project is so big, with all the phasing, a contractor wouldn't be able to handle it. We'll need a CM, we'll need his expertise to then
Workers.
help with the phasing.
so I just wanna say, there's a meeting going on behind me and there's a meeting going behind you.
I know.
Dwight, you come back
I'll
over
come
here
over,
so
yeah.
we can all hear you again, and then we'll continue the discussion.
sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But
I just
we
had a design question
have
regarding.
different meetings going on.
And from where it begins, because I'm seeing it oriented on the police department side of the building. And I know we have a grant to do the sidewalk project in the town center, so I'm sure this was thought through, because everything seems to have been very thoroughly thought through, I'm not questioning that, but does that connect to the new sidewalk project?
No.
So shouldn't it go
No.
from the other way, so it does connect?
You're talking about the new sidewalk project that we're doing on New Inn Road?
Yeah, to connect the high school
This is
to
high
the
school, yeah.
town center, and then isn't it also improving or lighting or sidewalks?
Just the lighting.
The lighting,
Okay. So are there currently sidewalks?
yes,
Accessible on that side as well? Okay.
correct. They-
To me,
Well, not on the, when you're talking about the police department side, you've got the green. So
Yeah.
if you're talking sidewalks, you talk along the side near the street and the green. And no, there's nothing planned, there's nothing for that. But,
Okay. Okay.
so if what's next to the police department as far as the building is concerned is the parking lot.
So is that oriented towards the parking lot or towards?
It's oriented to the current police parking lot
Yeah.
because we discussed probably having all the handicap parking over that way. It really could go anyway.
Interesting.
Another thing that really needs to happen is a survey, because we're kind of guessing a little right now.
Oh, I
So
haven't
like
heard
to
that.
the townspeople
A
or
survey
to
of the site, so that we really know the grading and how we can really
Yeah, legitimate
design.
survey.
This is
Yeah.
conceptual.
It's not a design yet.
Right, it's purely conceptual at this point.
Yeah.
We're
There's no details.
if I'm understanding correctly, this is a concept.
It's a first date.
It's yeah, so,
We just-
but
we
what,
First
so
dates mean
before we get
different
into
things to different people.
Okay, Andrea, let's hear it.
the, I guess my thought would be, Sheila asked, like you said, if we wanted to move forward with this, what would we do next? And my sense is that we have to consider all these factors and really get some numbers that are
Right.
numbers to consider. Because this right now is just telling us you got a really, really big project that needs a lot of, real lot of work. And we should be looking at sooner rather than later,
Right.
specifically because of the type of issues that exist at the building.
That's correct.
So now, what's next? So how do we get these to be a little bit more concrete?
Right now, we're at the end of phase one. If you get an authorization, we'll give you an estimate to go ahead, a number to proceed with phase two, which is now bringing in the CM, starting to finalize the documents and everything else. It all depends on the scope of work.
Let me make sure we're talking CM as what,
Construction man.
Construction manager.
well, you don't have a design yet, Dwight. That's what I'm saying. If you don't, how are you bringing in construction manager? And this is just me not understanding, so please understand my question.
I worked for 45 years. The thing is, you need a CM, especially in a project where you have multiple phases, you have multiple moves, and they will help you estimate, show you, this is what you can do to help you with moving, all the logistics and everything else. Help with the estimating, work with the architect on the estimating and everything else, and work with it, so as the drawings are being developed, they can say, no, that's not gonna work, we don't recommend that, do this. So it's just another set of eyes, but it worked very well on the new firehouse project. We had a CM, brought a CM in, and it worked extremely well, and we actually saved money overall. Came in under budget.
In terms of process, so a sum of money, and I think it was in your capital budget request, right? There was a dollar amount to do this. At a certain point, we would be ready to estimate the cost, and in order to bond, if we're gonna go out to bond, this is a referendum project. Is that
Correct,
correct?
it's gonna happen.
So there is a certain amount of money that we need to expend before we're ready to put out a referendum.
Well, essentially, we need to go to the next step. We need to do is, are we willing to go look at the entire project to do it all? Or are we willing to maybe just look at the building envelope and try to get that, try to do that at a reduced cost, and then focus in on the other things later on, and the interior?
And I guess
that would push the rest of it out several years, and construction costs are gonna escalate back.
It's, every year it goes up 8% escalation.
Right. You know, I thought.
I do, but I'll hold on a minute.
Do we know, just out of curiosity, are there grants for, I'm gonna call it historical restoration?
I asked that same question, yeah.
You know, you would think that, again, if we're figuring out what's the cost to tear down a building, clean up the site, build a new building, maybe there's grants that would say if you kept the envelope or kept the building, you get more money.
Certainly something that.
It should be looked at, yeah, when we figure this all out. And I mean, I think the other thing is the $42 million or whatever we're talking about, we're all going yikes. And we're looking at, you said, what, 3 years? I think, again, as the Board of Selectmen are considering this thing, you go and say, what do we need to do immediately? And then if we postpone it because we don't want to go to bond for $42 million, I'm assuming, right off the bat, adding in that 6% increase.
I guess that's where I'm having a disconnect. You said we should just do the envelope, and in my way of thinking, that's a phase. So how much is that gonna be? How much,
Well,
what
we
do
said
we
it
do
was
for that?
roughly with the electrical, and that's what we read.
Whatever it is.
It's about a little over $6 million. If you did the entire building envelope, roofing, the waterproofing, everything on the exterior, windows,
That
What-
was $18 million.
no, that was also, she's talking about 16 was the included interior assessment. Right, am I wrong?
Correct.
Roughly about a little over 6 million for the,
6.2.
just the envelope.
I understand.
Just to make that,
Oh, I
and
see.
that's something that, if we do anything, just, if we don't do the whole project, that's one of the things that I think we should, as a town, consider doing.
Based on what I saw, we have to do a lot more than that. See, I don't see it as being, okay, we did the envelope, okay, let's move on.
No.
I see it as being, that's phase one of ultimately what we have to do. So when I'm talking about phases, I'm talking about that. I'm saying, what component of this project can we do year one, and how much will that be? What component of the project do we follow that up with? And how much is that, and what timeline do we have for that? And then so there are enough need to do's here so that if we're gonna renovate, you're doing a lot more than just the envelope. You're doing, you
No, I
can't get away
understand, if
with
you're
it.
gonna do the inside, and if you're gonna do everything, yeah, you're gonna have to.
But that's kind of what I'm looking
It'll
for
be-
in terms
it'll
of being
be-
able
it'll
to
be the
assess
phasing.
how to
It'll
go
be-
about this.
It'll be, well, we can identify time periods and costs per phases.
That's,
We can do that. So
right.
phase one would be the the ramp, the exterior work,
Yes, yes.
the electrical and whatever it is, and we can identify time period and costs, estimated cost. Then for the phase two, for the next phase, we can identify the cost and the time period, okay, to do that.
And in my mind, again, being totally ignorant and just listening to what people are saying, it seems to me if you don't fix the envelope, it's just gonna get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. So at the very least, it would seem to me you have to fix the envelope as quickly as you can, unless you make the decision you're tearing the building down.
But we have to get the specifics on fixing the envelope, because the envelope does include solar. It does include, if you're gonna do solar, you've gotta make sure you factor that in to whatever
Yeah.
you're doing. So there's more to it than what we have right now, and I think what we need to do is move toward that, so we have some concrete, something substantive that we can start making decisions on. My sense is just the way you're looking at it in terms of the priorities. If we break that down into phases, I think that helps us to set up a means by which we can
Well,
get this done.
you'll see what
As opposed
the
to
link we'll
sections
send
of the building
tomorrow.
is what I'm saying.
You'll see in a link we'll send tomorrow, it'll include all the phases. Phase one for this is what it includes. It'll show you the drawings, which is phase one. It identifies all the phases, and it identifies costs for each of the
And
phases.
maybe I missed this, and you can correct me, but the way I saw the phases outlined when we just presented it, Michelle, was in sections of the building, as opposed to, for example, if you're doing the envelope, you're doing the envelope,
I
you're
saw
doing
it
the
the
whole building.
opposite way, I saw it in terms of what needs to be done.
Sorry.
So the phasing
Across the board.
so the colored plan that you see up there addresses the phasing. So when we're on the green, we're gonna do those windows then.
Right.
We're gonna do the roof then. And
Right.
there is a benefit to doing it that way, because we're also doing the mechanicals that might go through the roof, that might have a rooftop unit on.
Right.
We really prefer to do it that way, because that's the best way. But if you weren't gonna attack the whole building, then at least do the envelope and do that soon. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now I'm starting to understand why the phasing is so important.
So you're doing the envelope first, and then everything else.
No,
No.
if I'm understanding Michelle.
No.
Yeah, so what I just heard Michelle say is if we are trying to reduce the amount we're spending, and eventually we're going for the whole 40 whatever million endeavor, then it would be more cost effective to do it this
Section,
way,
section.
rather
Right.
than starting with the end of the building.
Right,
That's,
correct.
that's what I'm
Right.
hearing you
Worst
say
case
too,
scenario.
contrary to what I was,
The
what
issue
we were
is
talking
that-
about.
Right.
The issue is that you might need Band-Aids in between, you know, and you're spending more money in between. But it's better to attack, if you're gonna do the inside, do the outside with it.
Right.
If you're really not gonna do this, just get the outside button up.
So this might be the worst first date I've ever had.
And do I understand correctly, Dwight, bottom line is you need money to get to the next set of data that the selectmen need.
The money that was in your capital budget, if I remember correctly, was specific for what I guess most people would consider consulting.
Yes.
And that's what you're looking for. Is that, am I
Well, we're
understanding
also
that?
gonna have to hire, if we're gonna
That
do
contract
that,
plan,
we need to hire a CM, because
To
the
consult.
next phase, phase two, is now gonna be a lot more extensive. Now we're gonna get into the details, we're gonna get into the phasing. Some of this phasing may change when we bring a CM on board. They may have better ideas. We may be able to do it in 4 phases instead of 5 or whatever. They may have some better ideas, and also estimating, cost estimating.
And additionally, just some upfront costs would probably be to get the structural evaluation, to
Right.
check the septic. We talked about a traffic study at one point, all these other components that we didn't originally have.
Because we looked at the parking lot out here by Center, you can't fit a lot of cars. Where are you gonna put the cars?
Yeah, so Michelle, the survey that you said we need to kick all this stuff off, was that cost included in,
No.
No.
and roughly how much does that usually run for a project like this?
That's what you surveyed.
I have no
Generally,
idea.
they say
I-
5 to
I-
10%.
Don't exactly
Yeah, so-
know, we just did a school, it was a small portion, that was like 20 grand. This is probably 35, 40,
Okay,
my guess.
We won't
Quote
hold
me on
you
it.
to it, don't worry.
Yeah. thank you.
Super helpful.
Well, the numbers we were talking in the budget were significantly more than that. For starting, for the, whatever you wanna call it, consulting work, the CM, whatever you wanna call it.
Right, we just wanna know is, we need to, and we can give that information, we can present it. But, you know, the next phase is, if we're gonna go to phase 2, and if this is something that we're gonna do, then phase 2 is actually gonna look at the entire building, renovate the entire building, electrical, mechanical, and everything. And then to bring in a CM. So phase 2 is actually gonna start looking at the details, finalizing the phasing plan, finalizing the estimating costs and everything else.
And that's gonna be your presentation to the board
So
of selectmen.
that way, then once that's done, then we can come back and say, okay, here are all the revised plans, here are the updated plans, here are the updated costs, this is what it is.
Can I ask a question, in terms of looking at grant money for, say, police station, right? If we go to Homeland Security and we say we have a police station project, it's not until we've spent the money on the CM and the plans that we would have a document that's ready to submit for a grant.
It depends.
Depends on the grant.
It depends on the grant.
Depends on the grant.
Like we have submitted, and I should have said this in my report, but we have submitted, for example, a grant for the EOC, from the congressional grant for the EOC specifically, because that was something that we qualified to do a grant for.
So you had a dollar amount in mind?
As a result of, I believe we took it off of this project based on
Correct.
what this project was saying. So we had enough information
Right.
just with these numbers to be able to submit the grant. In
Okay.
other cases, they're looking for the detail. Yeah, they're looking like you're gonna do this project anyway, you've already budgeted for it for all intent and purposes, and now you're coming for a grant. And those are some of the larger grants that my understanding, Tony, you're much
Correct.
more qualified
Yeah,
to say that,
That's
but,
correct.
but, it's, so yeah, in my opinion, it goes without saying that we would go after everything that's, exhaust all
So we don't really know
options.
how much we would bond, because we haven't yet found out.
But you have an order of magnitude.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think what's important today, for my, I'll speak personally, is that I see the need in a different way than I've seen it in the past, from that perspective. So if you could define very specifically what we need to do to move forward and present it to the Board of Selectmen, I won't speak for the rest of the board here, but I think that's the direction we need to go in at this
Sure.
point in time.
Yeah, I'd put the septic way up there, frankly. I mean, that seems like a pretty important thing to take care of.
So,
Flooding.
And it just seems the sooner we get started, the less money we'll spend overall.
Well, speaking for the Board of Finance, I want to thank the committee and the work you guys have done and for presenting it tonight, and, because it's an education.
It's been a long process.
It's
We've
been
been
a long
working
process.
for 2 years.
Yeah,
So,
and,
you know, this is just phase one. We're just at one of the phases. We have 5 phases.
by the
really.
time you're done, I'll be too old to eat at the senior center. I mean, it's like I
There'll
won't
be a
even
ramp
get lunch
for you,
there
Susan,
anymore.
it's okay, there'll be a ramp, we can wheel you in.
Yeah.
Board of Selectmen as well.
No, we wanted to do this once. We didn't, you know, we didn't want it to do it and then have to come back and do the Board of Selectmen separately. We just wanted to try to,
So Dwight, how quickly can the committee get the information to the Board of Selectmen in terms of details that we'll need in order to make a decision on moving this forward? How
we'll work on
quickly?
that. We'll work on that.
How quickly?
I know, that's why it's important.
We're gonna have to, we'll schedule a meeting and then we'll find out probably
Okay.
in a few months.
If I could ask, a few months, you know our meetings, so.
I know, exactly.
If we can
It's the
target,
second Wednesday of every month.
right, so if we can target maybe July, it gives you a month and a,
Well, we'll see, we'll see what we can do.
okay.
We'll try to expedite, but I wanna make sure that we thoroughly evaluate it too. I don't wanna give you
Thank you.
information that's not correct either.
Right, so I think we're done. Speaking on behalf of the Board of Finance, I move to adjourn. Is there a second? Second, okay, we're voting unanimously,
Yep.
and now you can do yours. You have
Well,
to-
before I do, I will also thank you for the work that you've done. And if there are any other questions,
Thank you.
motion carries.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
It's the first time I've been to 2 meetings at the same time.